Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have a guest on. Now, when it comes down to any type of business, sales is definitely a skill that needs to be developed, no matter what you are doing. In fact, even as a professional, sales is a skill that needs to be developed. So today I'm excited about the guest that I'm going to have on. He really works with a lot of salespeople in the high tech space. So we're going to definitely dive into it. So stay tuned for the show. Now, if you're looking for a great way to really take your business to the next level, you really want to pay attention to my guest, Chris. So, welcome to the show, Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Terrell. I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Now, Chris, before we jump into the details of your business, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Because they know you're sales related, but tell us a
Right.
little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I've been working as a high-tech sales rep or sales leader for 25 plus years in the high-tech industry, and still do that, by the way, today. And I think part of the reason we're talking today is during that time, I've done really well, been successful, made good money. During that time, I've consistently been building up a real estate business on the side, investing my personal assets into local multifamily property here. And that's been really successful. It's worked out well and generated some additional income for the family. And as that's grown, I had decided to scale that up to open it up to other people to invest alongside of me. And so that's when I created this brand called High Tech Freedom, which really just creates an opportunity to educate and allow other high tech salespeople like myself to invest in real estate along with us, and create that additional income stream for their future plans or retirement. Most high tech sales professionals don't have a lot of time to go out and buy property and manage it and build a little mini business around it. They work hard enough as it is, but yet they still want the exposure to that specific asset as part of their portfolio. And so that's what we help them do.
Awesome, awesome. That's very interesting because even when I think about, out of all of the professionals, I mean, my background is accounting and finance. And I think about like all the types of professionals, one of the things that you commonly hear is that, a good salesperson will never find themselves unemployed. And also sales is, hey, you eat what you kill. So there's always this sense of there's always activity to be done. At what point for you, or was it something that happened that made you start thinking like, hey, I'm great at sales, but what else can I be doing outside of that?
Well, I think, anytime you have a challenge, it forces you to step back and think about, beyond the current year. And so for me, I was a salesperson and going through the dot-com bubble back in 99, 2000, when the tech bubble burst, and stock markets collapsed and a lot of the tech companies, just went out of business. There was a lot of my friends that had gone to different companies that were now unemployed, great salespeople, but hey, the company they worked for was going under, getting acquired, liquidating. I was fortunate. I never was laid off. In fact, I actually thrived and was able to win some really nice business, but it definitely was a wake up call for me to say that, I need to have some control of my destiny, because there's certain things that are out of your control. And if the company struggles and has to go out of business, let's say, and I need to move on, I don't want to be desperately out there searching for the next job. I want to find the right job. And so I wanted to have a business that I was building up on the side to create some cushion and some freedom for me. And that's why I spent some time really getting smart on the real estate business and starting to invest my commission dollars into that sector.
Mhm. Now, what was it like for you early on? I mean, were you kind of learning all the hard lessons on your own early on when you were trying to get started with the investing?
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because everything, the little stuff, even just like, all right, well, creating my own LLC and, figuring out the state paperwork, the federal paperwork, and then going to the bank and realizing that they don't like my operating agreement. And, you know, a lot of figuring it out as I went along. Um, in hindsight, if I was to go back and do it again, I would have probably put more effort into reaching out to other people that had already done it. So, like a platform like what you're doing right now, man, if I was paying attention and listening to that stuff then, it might have saved me a lot of time. So that's definitely a piece of advice that I would pass along.
Gotcha, gotcha. So now, as you talked about, part of your passion and your thoughts are is like, hey, there are other salespeople who probably living through the same phase that you lived through, where it's like, hey, I'm in a sales role. It's very consuming because, hey, if you're going to be good at it, you got to invest the energy into it. But they have this excess commissions or excess cash that you're like, hey, how can I actually, put this into something that's going to have, a growth value to it.
Mhm.
So when you started really, changing your perspective of, hey, I'm good at doing this myself, was it something that really triggered for you to say, hey, maybe I should start inviting other people to join in some of these deals?
Yeah, I think at some point when I started really reap some of the benefits of my hard work, I started having people ask me about investing. And it's interesting because people would come up to me and want to grab a coffee and talk about, well, hey, how do I go get into real estate? And so I'd have a chat with them, and then we leave, and I kind of pay attention to what they're doing, and I see that they get a new car and on a new vacation, and then I check in. Hey, how's the journey going on the real estate side? Well, I don't have any money. Okay, well, I wonder why. But it just, from people asking me more about what I've been doing, it just spurred me to, kind of scale it up, be a little bit more professional about it, and share my journey with other people so I can help them along the way.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, what ways have you been finding have been helpful for you to be able to share your journey and to connect with other people who are looking for what you have to offer?
Yeah, it's interesting because I early on I was never going to meetups. I would see that these meetups were happening, but I never would go. And I was like, I don't have time for that. I got to go sell. But boy, it's now that I go to in-person meetups or maybe a virtual meetup, the number of times I meet somebody that says something that exposes my brain to some new idea that I just hadn't thought of always surprises me. And so I think that's been really important. Listening to the podcasts, going to conferences, continuing to sharpen the saw, getting smart around what it is that you don't know. And sometimes it's not so much just the education as it is the exposure to other people that are doing different things that can open up new thoughts for you. And maybe it's similar to what they're doing, or maybe it's something totally different that you hadn't thought of, but you're not going to be the greatest person to counter what you're thinking and then generate a great idea off it, right? You have to be engaged with other people to really generate those ideas.
Mhm. Awesome. Now, do you find that from your sales background, do salespeople typically understand that in the context of being, in an environment around other sales professionals or, going to sales conferences that help them sharpen that skill?
No, no. I mean, I think it's a general 80-20 rule. I think the top performers do get it. And, they're always looking to improve. The rest of the pack probably don't. They'll go because they're looking to get something from it, maybe a client. But usually if you're going into anything with the idea that you're trying to get something, you're not going to be very successful. It's, flip it around. If you're going into it with how can I give something, create some value, usually you get that in return exponentially. But you have to go and do it with the right mindset. How can I help others? How can I just generally build new relationships with no expectation of anything coming out of it? And inevitably, something great eventually does come out of it.
Nice, nice. I find that mentality to be such a rewarding one. As you said, I mean, when you go into it with expectations, it seems like there's so much pressure on like trying to turn this situation into something when it's just like, you could ruin a good relation or a potentially good relationship, or you could just be putting too much pressure at a time that it just doesn't make sense right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. The conversation becomes less authentic. It seems like it's being forced down a certain path versus, maybe letting it develop naturally.
Mhm. Gotcha. And that's something that I've always been curious about, from every now and then I would take have to do like some continuing education classes to keep my certified public accountant license active. And every now and then I would squeeze in some of the sales trainings. And it's one of those interesting things that I hear in sales trainings where they talk about, being able to gauge that, and pretty much not trying to convert every relationship or not trying to convert immediately, to where in my mind I was just like, oh, all salespeople think like this. So where I'm just like, man, I'm starting to learn as I talk to more sales professionals, maybe all salespeople don't think like this.
Hmm. Yeah, it's true. Well, I commend you for taking those extra classes while doing your kind of the minimum required training, because in any role, there's always the direct line salespeople that are responsible for generating revenue, but everybody within the company has a sales role. It could be internal. You could be, a product manager, or on the product team, and you have an idea that will enhance the product that could drive revenue. Well, that's just not going to happen on its own. You have to go present the idea in a compelling way that addresses the needs of the business or the needs of the executive leadership team. Just maybe it's not just, well, hey, we can go do this and drive an incremental 5% of revenue. Well, there may be bigger issues on the table right now, a broader strategy that you need to figure out. All right, well, how do I package what I think is a great idea into a way that speaks their language? What's top of mind for them, not just what I think is cool. And so that's sales, right? And the more that people can work that into their daily job, it's just going to excel them in their role and in their career, regardless of whether or not it's a direct sales role.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I mean, and I guess speaking of that, where you mentioned about, sometimes, you have to gauge your audience to where, hey, just immediate sales growth is not the most pressing topic that's on their mind. So in line with that thought is when it comes down to, sales professionals investing excess commissions or excess capital into real estate, what are some of the concerns, or I guess you say the concerns that they're trying to solve for when they start looking at opportunities like that?
You mean the concerns for the salespeople? What problem are they trying to solve by looking at real estate?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I typically would, I think a lot of times they're concerned that, hey, I have generated maybe a lifestyle that is based off what I'm making today. And I know that my 401k, when I decide to go retire, it's not going to replace the income that I'm making now. So if I want to maintain that lifestyle, maybe a golf membership or whatever, I'm going to need to generate some additional streams of income. And so I think the ones that have taken the step to start to look at real estate, that's what they're thinking about, is income streams for retirement, to have the freedom of time, to have the freedom to maintain that lifestyle that maybe that individual, the spouse or the children are used to.
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think, from my perspective of talking to some of my business owners, that's one of the things that I do bring up to them at times is, that if your lifestyle is really built on what you're doing right now, it's like, what happens when you want to slow down? What happens? Because at some point, you may not want to do this forever.
Yeah, most likely.
So I think it is that, it's something that, we see over and over of people really, I guess, hesitant at times, or maybe just thinking in the moment, like, hey, what I'm doing now is great and I really enjoy it, but you won't do it forever, which is why I'm very interested in, as people are interested in finding out more about kind of what you guys are doing, where can they find you online to find out more information?
Yeah, a great place to go is just to our website, which is hightechfreedom.com. And they can reach out and contact us there, or if somebody just wants to learn more about investing in real estate, they can subscribe to a newsletter. We have a free ebook. We're also going to be posting more content under the resource section. So, just a great place to go get educated and learn more before even approaching the idea of investing in real estate.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, speaking of some of the content that you guys are looking to post there, will it be video content, more written content, or audio content?
Yeah, so mostly written and audio. So in fact, today is 12:30. I'm launching a podcast officially on January 1st called High Tech Freedom. So it's in line with our brand. And so we'll have all of those podcast episodes on the website as well. That's really content more geared towards the high tech sales professional, bringing on other really highly successful high tech sales professionals, entrepreneurs, thought leaders to share lessons learned, best practices, and just insights over their career. And the whole the theme and the theme behind the podcast is you first need to learn from the best in order to earn like the best. And then how do you take those hard-earned commission dollars and redeploy them in a way that generates an additional income stream to create that freedom that we're all looking for? And freedom
Awesome.
freedom, it can be freedom of time. It's really each individual has their own definition of freedom. So hopefully we help them achieve that.
Awesome. Now, what made you come up with the idea of doing a podcast? Because different people have been approaching content in various ways where some people have decided, hey, written is our path. But I'm curious as to, what about podcasts really started to appeal to you?
It's interesting because I started doing some content, just writing up some articles and some blog posts. But what I love about the podcast experience, and I have about 17 episodes in the can now that we've done, is I'm a salesperson, so I love talking to the people. And the thing that I didn't realize that going into this was every one of these people that I'm talking to, I'm learning some great stuff, some great tips. And I'm still, a sales leader. And so I'm hearing some great insights from people. And then I'm turning around and using it for my sales team. I'm using it the next day in my job. And sometimes it's things that I've heard, but I forgot. Sometimes there's new things that come up. Just some great content that I personally have picked up. So selfishly, it's actually sharpening my skills and making me a better sales leader.
Nice, nice. I love it. I love it. And what's the name of the podcast again?
It's High Tech Freedom.
High Tech Freedom. So everyone that is watching and listening to this show, if you're definitely looking to learn from some great sales professionals and entrepreneurs, as I said in the introduction, sales is something, no matter what type of business you have. Like I have an accounting and finance business, and I intentionally learn about sales because you won't grow your business unless you do. So definitely go check out the podcast. And you said it launches January 1st?
January 1st.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, how often are you guys looking to release episodes?
Yeah, it's going to be weekly. So 1 week we'll have a guest, and then 1 week it'll just be me providing a shorter segment on a very specific topic, around anything related to sales, mindset, goal setting, maybe tips, tactics, whatever it might be.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, as I said, you're watching, you're listening. Definitely you want to go check that show out because sales is definitely a skill that will be useful if you're a professional or if you are running a business. I mean, definitely you want to check that out to learn from people who have been successful at it. So I love it. I love it. Well, before we wrap up, one question I always love asking every guest that comes on is, what's 2 pieces of wisdom that you would share with other business owners? And it could be something you've already said that you want to reiterate, or it could be a new point.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 things. And I didn't have this first one totally nailed down, but I think you need to be thinking about your exit plan, right? I mean, what are you working towards? Because I've always been sort of a hard worker, workaholic, head down. I had no issues putting in the hours, but what's the end goal? And I've got my vision board back here now, and I've always had this idea that I wanted to build up a certain size of a real estate portfolio and business, but to what end, right? And so I'm pretty clear on that now. So that's number one. And number two is it's just people. I early in my career, I was more of a heads down. I was always a salesperson, so I was always a heads down, go deliver on the numbers, let the results speak for themselves. And that limited, I think, some of my success because I have the concept of bringing more people and being more open into my network to really elevate my success. So, kind of bringing in the team, surrounding myself with people that are already kicking butt, doing what I'm doing. When you can do that, you're going to accelerate your performance. It's just too hard to just be in your own world, focus on doing your own thing. People will lift you up. And, everybody's heard that saying, I guess by now, that I think Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And it's totally true.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Well, Chris, thank you so much for being an amazing guest and coming on the show. It's definitely been a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Terrell. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.